Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the PRSA Mid-Columbia Chapter January Lunch and Learn. I'm Margaret. I'm a member of the program committee, and today we will be learning about search engine optimization. So Chris Davis, the Vice President of Digital Marketing with Brandcraft here in Kennewick, will be presenting to us on SEO. Chris has 10 years of digital marketing experience, and his team manages over $2 million in business-to-business focused advertising. Today's Lunch and Learn is meant to be interactive, and Chris does encourage questions.
Well, hello. I drove back from Seattle this morning and was not expecting to drive into snow, so I'm a little mentally discombobulated. So if I make any mistakes, we're just going to blame it on the snow, not on me just driving back this morning. So again, what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about what's SEO and how can you rank better in Google. At the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to get more visibility for our businesses or for our clients. And there really is no better way to get visibility than being where people are searching and where they're trying to find answers and to their questions. The way that I explain Google often to our clients is, I use Google when I'm in need. Like, yesterday, I was in Seattle. We were looking for a place to grab lunch. So what did I do? I went right to Google and looked to see what's near me. I had a problem and I needed an answer. So the intent of users in Google is really high. I use it when I'm trying to solve a problem or when I'm trying to win an argument, right? How many times have we said that? Well, I don't know. Let's Google it and find out who's right? I had a need and I need to find it. So my intent is always the highest as it can be in Google. So that's why we want to rank as high as we possibly can. So again, who am I? I know everybody was expecting a Danny and you got a Chris. Sorry. Sometimes we got to make some changes, but, first and foremost, I'm a husband to an amazing woman who also I get the privilege of working with every day here at Brandcraft. And also I'm a dad to these two little munchkins, although they're a little bit older even than they are now. And so the older one I'm starting to get slightly afraid of, but, keep me in your thoughts. We'll get through it. Again, I've been doing this for 10 years, currently the VP of Digital Marketing at Brandcraft. I'm also available for photo shoots if you need someone to look off into the distance. This is my resume here to show that I can do that well. These are some of the brands that I've worked for, including at one point of my career running paid social acquisition for Uber Eats in North America. Lots of different types of clients and done lots of different things. Primarily in my career, I've been a paid social strategist and putting together all of these strategies, but in different times worked a lot in SEO and also worked with a lot of really smart SEO people who luckily I was able to learn from as we went through. So again, why are we here? Here's some stuff that we'll talk about. So I want to give you just a really brief overview. What's SEO? What's the difference between technical and on-page SEO? Those are words you hear thrown around a ton. Sometimes you'll hear the difference between technical or semantic SEO. One thing that I'm sure everybody on this call understands, and one of the things that I've seen through my career is that marketers love to give new names for things. We have almost as many acronyms as like the medical and the military in terms of what we call stuff. We call everything 2 or 3 different things. So let's break down what technical and on-page is. And then I also wanted to get into some of the tactics. So we'll talk about technical monitoring, keyword research, on-page optimization, and ongoing SEO work. And I've also included a bunch of tools, a bunch of free tools that you guys can use as you go forward and start exploring some of this. There's a plethora of SEO tools, but some of these will just help you get started as you're working through it. So let's dive into that SEO overview. As a marketer who works in SEO, this is how I feel many days when I get up and look at the news about what Google is doing in search. They will change algorithms without saying anything and then not tell you why they changed it. And we're really forced to kind of just fight the battle the best that we can. So technically, what is SEO? Search engine optimization, or SEO, is the process of improving the quality and quantity of website traffic to a website or a web page from search engines. I read that and I was kind of had this face like, what does that really mean in everyday speech? What does that even mean? SEO is the process of making your web page as relevant as possible to get a user search in Google. At the end of the day, all we're trying to do is tell Google, hey, when a user performs this search, I've got great content for that. My website performs well, and I can answer their problem. We have to remember that Google is not a nonprofit. Like, they don't do this stuff just for fun. They literally, their whole goal is to drive the most relevant search traffic that they can, so people spend more time on their search engine, which then allows them to charge more money in advertising to, companies like mine as we're going and trying to do stuff for our clients. So at the end of the day, the one word, if you were to take one word out of this whole presentation, is probably going to be relevancy. That's the most important thing. If a user is searching for, like in my industry, if somebody's looking for SEO tactics in Kennewick, Washington, I have to have a web page on my site that talks about that if I ever want a chance at ranking for that. And that's one of the biggest things that we have to take into account, is that it's not even really how good our website looks. At times, it's not even about, well, I really researched this topic and I have great information. If it's not easy for Google to understand what it is and they don't deem it as relevant, you will have a really, really hard time ranking. It's all about providing relevant value to a user that's out there performing the search. So as always, there's two sides to everything. We're going to talk a lot about content as we go forward, but there is two different types of SEO. There's technical and on-page SEO. Again, sometimes you'll hear people say semantic SEO. But really, technical is about making sure the bones of your website, how fast it loads, what the hierarchy is of tags on the site, that the pages are set up in the right format and there's links and all those links work. All of that stuff has to be working for then the on page to work, which is the actual content that's going through. Was there a question that came in? Okay, I just saw the chat thing pop up, so I was like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I'm paying attention. On page SEO, that's the content. That's what the page is about. That's what users are going to take away. I often kind of have said, technical SEO is the foundation of your house, and on-page SEO is the decorations that you put on the wall, making sure people want to stay in and pay attention to it. Again, at the end of the day, it's about making our websites a resource to our potential customers. It's not just about creating a website to please Google. It's about creating a website that solves problems. We could have everything perfect from a technical standpoint, but if we're not solving the problems and users aren't staying on the site, users aren't seeing what they're expecting to see and they're bouncing out, that is going to cause us problems and not allow us to get where we want to be. So it's all about how do we anticipate the needs of our customers and go forward. I often will tell our clients, a website is usually managed by marketing. It's usually something that marketing is putting together, but really a website is just as much of your sales team as it is part of your marketing team, because we sometimes can't control the reasons why somebody stumbles onto our website. I can't control why someone all of a sudden needs a service that I provide, but they do a search and they get to our website. What I can control is how they feel about us after they leave. Did we build trust with that user? Did we help them by solving a problem, or did we leave them confused and distrusting when they leave, which overall hurts our business? So again, it's all part of a bigger ecosystem, but SEO really plays a big role in just making sure that we're there for users when they need us. So you might ask, okay, that's great. We want a relevant website. We want to rank well with Google. How are we going to do that? And my response is, I'm really happy you asked, because that's why we're here and that's what we're going to talk about. So number one, in SEO tactics, technical monitoring. Again, if your technical side of your website isn't working, then nothing else matters. If your site doesn't perform, your content doesn't matter. If someone can't get to that page and actually read the content, or someone's on a phone and they click on a link that you have and it takes your site 10 seconds to load, they're not going to stick around and look at that content. They're going to push the back button. They're going to go to the next person in the search results and they're going to move forward. So we have to make sure that from a technical standpoint, our website is up to snuff and performing the way it should be. So there's certain technical errors that Google looks at and that they might immediately are shown as signs of distrust, right? It immediately hurts our relevancy. 404 errors are the most common 4XX errors. What that really means is page not found. So that's where we have a website that maybe somebody shared, or we changed the URL on the site and we didn't put a redirect in place, or we changed our website completely and all of our URLs are different than they were previously. But those URLs in Google's world are still alive. As soon as a URL is indexed by Google, it will always be active within their index unless we specifically tell them not to have that active, or we put a redirect in place that's going to take it to a new page. So this happened, a user sees a link on your web page or a page that's in Google and they click on the link and it goes to a 404 error. Immediately hurts trust. Immediately is one of those things. Now, I mean, there's things you can do about those to make them funnier. I know people will create really funny 404 landing pages where if a website doesn't work, it's like, oh, we're sorry, something broke, go to this next page, which can be great from a user experience, or you might not help, or it might not hurt you losing a user, but it doesn't do anything for Google's relevancy and how they're looking at it in terms of, hey, you said this page was out there and it's not. 5xx errors, they're usually when servers are messed up. So let's say something happens with your web host or whatnot. It's usually when it's a timeout issue where Google's trying to connect to the server to load up the web page and it can't. We don't see those quite as often. 404 errors are pretty common. But a couple other the technical issues, page speed issues. So this is becoming more and more and more important. Google recommends that your site load in under 3 seconds. That can be really difficult, especially if you have a lot of images that aren't compressed, or you have a bunch of other tags. I know like one of our struggles, just being transparent in getting to that 3 seconds, is we use HubSpot as a CRM, and putting HubSpot on your website automatically slows it down a little bit. So we have to make concessions in other areas and figure out how to overcome that. But it used to be from a mobile phone, Google recommended 5 seconds. If your site didn't load within 5 seconds, somebody was going to leave. They've now moved that back even to 3 seconds. And you know, I get it, because I'm kind of the same way. If I'm on my phone and I need an answer to a question and I click on a page and it ends up taking too long to load, I'm going to go back and go to the next page and try to figure out what that answer is. This is becoming a much bigger ranking issue. So if your site loads slower, it will be very difficult for those pages to rank high within Google. Again, they're looking for user experience and relevancy there. So just something to really be thinking about. And again, a lot of the causes for that are things like uncompressed images, or really large files that are housed on the site. Too much animation and some of those things can slow it down if not done correctly. So there's lots of different little tricks and tools that you can use to speed up your website, but it's definitely something that you want to be aware of and thinking about in terms of thinking of different ranking factors and how you can get your pages to rank higher. And then additionally, broken links. Again, it's just a trust indicator. If I have links on my website that are supposed to be taking users to certain places and they don't, sometimes that can be a link that you have on your site that's going to an external source, or it's a link that's maybe between pages on your website. You know, Google is looking at all of those things. They want you to link within your own website. They want users to have clear paths and clear journeys that they can go on. And if that journey is interrupted by a link that no longer works, you know, it's an issue, and they'll call it out right away. So, oh, this is one of the biggest issues. And, you know, there's probably another 10 or 15 different errors that I could have put on here. There's errors like if your page title isn't long enough, or if your page title is too long, or if, you know, you don't have a meta description. Well, that's not something that maybe will be a technical error that will cause you to definitely not rank. These are all things that make it harder to rank. So what we want to do is just make it easier on ourselves, right? Make it easy on yourself, make it easier on Google, so that they're going to take the path of least resistance. Well, let's provide that to them. So
and before we move on, we have a question.
Yeah.
Andrea would like to know, how would you find a list of the 4xx errors that your site has, and how do you fix them?
Yeah, so great question. And as we go through here, there's a tool that's a free tool that I'll show you that will let you know if there's 404 errors. There's a bunch of different tools out there. I know SEMrush is one that has a pretty low cost entry, and that will do ongoing monitoring for you. There's other tools like Screaming Frog and some of these others that I didn't include in this list. They're a little bit more advanced, but they will also, you can run them at any time and they will tell you. In terms of fixing 404 errors, the most common way to fix a 404 error is to put a redirect in place. And what that is in the back end of your website, you can say, and WordPress is actually pretty easy. There's a redirect section in the tools of your WordPress dashboard. And what that will allow you to do is to say, if this URL comes up, which is typically the broken link, I want you to redirect it to this URL. Now, in the way that this works, and I've seen a lot, is like when we migrate a website and maybe they might have had a ton of blog posts that they don't want to keep live on the site. Maybe they're old, or they just weren't they're not as relevant as they used to be. What we will do is put in a redirect and say any one of these URLs, we just want to redirect them to the blog homepage. So that just covers if there's a link out there in the wild that we haven't seen or that someone shared amongst somebody, or it's just out there in the world, at least if somebody goes to that URL, there's a landing place for them and they won't just get an error. So typically 301 redirects is what they're called, is the best way to do it. And I typically will take, try to just take them to the most relevant page that you can. And if it's a blog post, like I said, the blog homepage, because that's where they're still getting the information. But if it's about a specific service, or if it's a team member page, we see this a lot where like people will leave a company and they don't want that page live on the site, obviously, because that person doesn't work there anymore. They'll redirect that to like the company homepage or the About Us homepage, where then they can see other team members. It's just a matter of finding the most relevant space place that you can put them, and then putting that redirect in place. And it's built into WordPress. If you have a WordPress site, I know that if you even Squarespace and some of those others have redirect tools. I'm not as familiar with them. I don't deal with them as much, but I do know that they're in there. Any other questions about that anyone wants to ask before I jump into more? Awesome. Well, here's a couple of these technical tools. So Google PageSpeed Insights is a great tool that I use all the time. It's a free tool. If you literally just Google PageSpeed Insights, this page will pop up. It's where you can throw in a URL and it'll give you a score on your speed from both mobile and desktop, because it's important to look at both. Google really operates under a mobile first index. So they're going to index everything mobilely. But they want to see with that how the page speed loads differently in those two different areas. And it can be vastly different. There was a time on our website even where we had a great desktop score, but our mobile score was really bad. And it was because we had a lot of videos that didn't load right and images that weren't compressed. And we had to go through and read and change a lot of those things. This also can be actually a really cool tool for competitor research, because you can put any URL that you want into this. So if you want to say, okay, well, is my page speed faster than my competitors, or how are they on mobile versus us? Sometimes when we want to get resources to update something, looking at competitors is the best way, because we could say, hey, look at our competitor so-and-so, their website on mobile is way faster than us. They're going to rank higher than us. Okay, well, let's take the time and the resources into making sure that our pages are going to load as quickly as they can. Another tool is just Google Analytics. Google Analytics has a lot of information in terms of how pages are performing, what your best pages are looking at in terms of traffic. But what I like to look at as well is how does traffic look versus conversions? Are we actually getting users to do what we want them to do when they reach the site? And if not, why not? Is it because the page isn't loading the way that it needs to be? Are we driving the wrong types of traffic? Obviously we're talking here about how we want to rank higher and we want to drive more traffic. But I also encourage people a lot, think about the types of traffic that you're ranking for. I don't want to rank for a bunch of irrelevant traffic just because I want to rank. Here's a good example. We had a page on our site, and I think it's still live because we're personally getting ready to do a new website. So a lot of this stuff will change on our site. But we had a page that was for free Adobe tools, or like free alternatives to Adobe. We drove a ton of traffic for that. But at the end of the day, that doesn't help us at all. That's not the right people they're not our potential customers per se. So again, you could rank for things that aren't valuable. So looking at things like Google Analytics helps you to understand how valuable that traffic actually is, which is going to help you put your time and energy into the right places. SEO is not, we'll talk about this a little bit later too, it's not a one-time thing. It's a continual process that you have to go through. And I would rather be spending that time and energy on things that are going to be helping our business versus just trying to rank for irrelevant keywords.
Chris, we've got a couple of questions that have come in.
Yeah.
Matt would like to know, how is SEO impacted for a business that suffers in SEO rankings and has had more than approximately 3 domain names in the last 10 years?
Oh, it can be, yeah, that's a pretty complex question. I would look at it, what the domain authorities were and how were those domain authorities shared. If it wasn't redirected from one domain to another, then you're basically starting from scratch. And that can be more difficult to get back to where you were. I think the biggest risk there is in what we're talking about with 404 pages or links not found, as we're changing domains and we're having to make sure that this content is being pulled over to this new site or we're redirecting. I would say it's probably going to make things a little bit more difficult, but if they're brand new domains and you're kind of starting from scratch, it also can be a big opportunity. I think to truly answer that, I probably would need to dig into a little bit more about the circumstance or whatever, and I'm happy to do so. Contact me after the session. I'd be happy to talk through that a little bit more.
Okay. And then Jessica would like to know, does the use of non-Google Analytics software impact a website's ranking?
I don't believe so. Not anything that I've seen, as long as it doesn't slow the site down. Again, like I said, HubSpot for us, we use it as a CRM, and it just ends up inherently slowing our site down some. So we've had to make some changes there. But all Google Analytics should be doing is just giving us information. It shouldn't have any impact on ranking factors.
Okay. And then Caitlin would like to know, how do you access your Google Analytics?
So you have to sign up for it and make sure that you have the code installed on the site. So for instance, when we built our websites, or we build a new one, we will go into Google Analytics and you sign up for a new account. And you have to use a Gmail ad account or a Gmail email address. So we have one set up that's just for that. And then you should be able to log into that. So if there's already analytics installed on the site, what you have to do is figure out, okay, what Gmail was used to set that Google Analytics up and sign in under that. And then you can give other users access, from that point on. If Google Analytics has not been installed yet, the best thing to do is to sign up for it, get the code generated, and put it in. One quick note around Google Analytics as well is that Google Analytics is changing in July. It's moving to a new program called GA4, or Google Analytics 4. Everything is done the same way. You sign up for it, you log in under the same email. But it's one of those things that I would recommend, and we've recommended to most of our clients, to get GA4 installed now. It's just another small piece of code that goes to your website, because that allows it to start gathering some data, so that you're not necessarily having a hard stop between the two. But to answer the original question, it's about finding out whatever Gmail address it was to set up that account, logging in that way, and or signing up under a Gmail account. And typically, if it's like a business, like for Brandcraft, we have like info@brandcraftmedia.com. That's our Google address that we use, that everybody on our team can access. It gets really hard, and I've run into this before with clients where like one person set up and under like their personal Gmail, or one that only they had access to, and then they end up leaving the company, and it's like, we can't log into our Google Analytics, we can't do any of these things. So I usually just say, have the company create a Gmail account that's used just for marketing things, and then all the emails and all the notifications and the logins can be stored within that.
Okay. Deborah has a question about the GA4 launch and whether you have to sign up for that separately.
No, so within your Google Analytics dashboard, if you go into the admin section, which is, for those that have been in the dashboard, actually, I think it might show it here. So here on this left-hand side where it says home, customization, all of that, if you were to continue to scroll down, there's a little gear sprocket down at the very bottom. If you click that, it brings up the admin panel, and in there, it'll walk you through setting up Google Analytics 4. So you can do it right from there, and it gives you, it's actually a really easy installation that will give you, like I said, just another small piece of code that you install the same way you did Google Analytics, and it'll start gathering data right away.
Okay. Michael would like to know, would you recommend putting multiple sites on one GA4 tag to get cross-domain data, or is it better to keep them separate?
I would keep them separate, because when I'm looking at it from a performance standpoint, if you're just looking at it within the dashboard, it will not separate the data from you. So you won't know what site is doing what. The other alternative option to that is you can do them as different views in analytics. So each account, I think, can have up to 20 views. And what I mean by that is basically the same snippet of code. There's just a dash and a different number behind it. That will allow you to have multiple sites in the same analytics instance, but it's still going to track them all separately. So you can go in and look at them on different views, but it's so that you don't have to log into like 25 different analytics accounts if you have multiple sites. So that's, we do that a lot with clients that have, like maybe they have a primary domain and then they have some subdomains that they also want to track traffic for. We'll use the same analytics code. We just use different views in order to separate those out. It's the same process as a lot of companies will want to filter out their own IP addresses from their business. So like if I had a large call center here and I don't want all the traffic from my internal people that are going to my website to look at up answers or whatever the case might be, you can filter out those IPs as well. That's just another view. So again, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have different views just because you have different URLs. Sometimes you just want to look at data differently. And so you can create those views as well. But there's a lot of tutorials out there around creating different views and why they're important. But that's how I would approach that. If I had multiple URLs that I wanted to track, if I wanted to track them all in one place and they were all relevant to each other, I would just create different views for each one.
Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. So I can never say this right, so just bear with me. It's like Ahrefs or Ahrefs is what it's called. It's just a free tool where you can go in, if you sign up, you can put your URL and it'll do like a technical scan for you. Again, a resource that we use that's not a free tool, but it is really good is SEMrush, which will allow, you can get those where they'll just monthly always send you a report. Here's an issue. We look at these things quite frequently for our clients, but I know some clients that'll have it just where they want it to scan once a month, just send me a report if there's a problem, and then they address it. So, but this is Ahrefs is a pretty reputable tool that also does a lot of that. It's just more, you don't necessarily store all the data and have all of the tools that maybe you would have on a more robust service. Any final questions on technical before we jump into keyword research? Awesome. Keyword research, the building blocks of SEO, as I like to say, and I think I heard that from somebody, so I won't take full credit of it, but I did find this gift to make it my own, so I put my own spin on it. But keywords are the building blocks of SEO. So the first step in anything that you want to do after your website is technically set up and you know that you're not going to run into any issues there, is you have to know, like, what are you shooting for? What is the target that you're actually trying to achieve? If you don't know what keywords you want to rank for, then you're never going to rank because you're never going to be able to track progress or understand. Once you know what those keywords are, and I'll share some tools here in a second that help with keyword research, but once you have those keywords in place, then it's all about how do I incorporate this into my content and in different areas. Again, we're trying to show relevancy to Google. So remember, Google's looking for the most relevant content. So the more you can indicate a page is relevant to a topic, the better, or to a specific keyword. So for instance, let's use SEO in Kennewick again as our keyword. If I wanted a page to rank for SEO in Kennewick, and that was my only goal, right? That was my keyword that I was trying to get it ranked for. I would want to make sure that SEO in Kennewick was in my title. I would want to make sure SEO for Kennewick is in my meta description. I want to make sure that SEO for Kennewick is in as many of the page titles or section titles as I can. Obviously, without making it, there's a fine line here. So let me give you this caveat. There's a fine line because back in the day when I first started doing this, SEO was kind of the wild, wild west. And you would go to web pages and literally like every other word would be the keyword. And it was called keyword stuffing. And they would just throw that keyword on the page as many times as humanly possible to make a site rank. And right now you actually get penalized for that. So you want to use the keyword as much as you can, but you want to use it in logical areas. Again, it still has to make sense. And it still has to be something that somebody reading through is not going to be like, why do they keep saying the same word over and over again? Typically, I can tell, when I log in and I'm like, man, I see this keyword more than 6-7 times. Yeah, they're really going after it. I can't remember the exact breakdown, and every tool will tell you a little bit differently, but If you have a web page that's 600 or 700 words, you probably want to use your focus keyword 5 times. Not much more than that. There's a tool that I'll share with you guys here shortly that will actually monitor that for you and tell you if you're using the keyword too many times, which has been great for me because sometimes I get a little keyword happy. Also, we kind of touched on this when we were talking about Google Analytics, but not every keyword's created the same, right? It's a lot of work to get these keywords ranking and to get them where you want to be in Google. Make sure you're putting that time and effort into ones that actually matter for your business. Again, I don't want to rank for free Adobe tools. I want to rank for Adobe specialists or people that can design. So think through how do you best attach that or attack that. Again, one of the best ways to rank for Google once your website is set up correctly is just in content. Content is still king, right? That's been the thing that's been thrown around for years, probably since I started doing this. So look for gaps in content. A gap in content is something where there's a relevant keyword where you just don't rank at all. And typically you don't rank at all because you don't have a web page associated for it. So look for those gaps and that helps you. One of the hardest things when I talk to people about content, you got to have content for SEO. You got to have content. They're like, well, I don't know what to write about. I get you. You have the keywords help to explain it, because what we do is we'll do research, find where those keyword gaps are. And those keywords now go into our content calendar. And I know for the next 6 months, I have to write content around these topics because these are where my holes are at and these are where my gaps are at. Plus, any new and fresh content always tends to get a boost from Google and rankings. So the more new content I can write about topics, or the more fresh that content can be, the better that it's going to be. Here's one thing that's kind of another tip. If you have a lot of videos on your site, make sure you include transcripts. Google can't read a video. They have no idea what that video is about. The only reason that, that's why they started to do the things in YouTube where you go in there and they want you to write out a ton of the description and all these tags, because they have no idea what that video is about unless you tell them. So I always recommend, if you have a video like a webinar, obviously within reason, you're not going to put an hour-long video, a transcript of that on something. It's going to be insane. But, if you have a 2, 3, 4-minute video, 30-second video that has meaning into it, has SEO value to it, you're going to want to create a transcript of that and you're going to want to put it on the web page. That is what's going to allow that video to actually rank. Additionally, alt tags. You hear people talk about alt tags, and I don't know if we've ever really explained what that is well. Accessibility within Google is at an all-time high. If your website is not accessible to people that maybe are colorblind or have problems seeing or can't hear, or whatever that issue might be, that's a huge red flag to Google. And I mean, it's a red flag to businesses in general, because businesses are getting sued for having websites that are not accessible. Alt tags are when let's say I have an image. We'll use the image of myself looking in the distance that I said I can model for, right? If I wanted to rank for that picture was on a page that I was trying to rank for let's say digital marketing in Kennewick. What I would want to do is in the back end of the website, whenever you upload an image, especially I know in WordPress, it'll ask you, what is your alt tag? That is an opportunity. So if I'm trying to rank for digital marketing in Kennewick, I might write Chris Davis, VP of digital marketing in Kennewick, right? Because then as they're reading through that, Google can't read the image. They have no idea what the image is, but they're reading that alt tag, and that's how they're deciding what that image is. So it's an opportunity to put keywords in there to allow us to, again, show another side of relevance without having to just plaster the keyword all over the web page. Also, it is a good experience for somebody who's using a web reader to go through and read the web page to them, because then they'll know, okay, it was a picture of a person and who they are. So it has dual benefits, but it's really just an opportunity that I think gets missed a lot. You have to have an alt tag. If you don't have one, that's a red flag. Make sure that you are entering those in. But it's an opportunity then to continue to show relevancy to Google about what those web pages are about.
Chris, Jessica would like to know, can transcripts for things like videos be hidden, or do they always have to be on the video?
I have always put them below the video as like if it was a blog post or something like that, as text for a user experience. Again, sometimes people can't watch a video, they're in a place, they don't have headphones or whatever it might be, they want to read. I don't recommend hiding them. You could put them in an iframe or something like that if you wanted to, I guess. It's not something that I would recommend doing, just because Google might appear as that you're trying to do keyword stuffing, even though you're not. But just the fact that there's a bunch of text in an iframe is a red flag to them. So I would just recommend putting it on the page. I think it's a better experience, and also it'll help that page rank better. One kind of little quick caveat about that too is, for a web page to rank in Google, it has to have a minimum of 300 words. So if you just have a video on a page with no wording at all, it'll be really, really difficult, even with something hidden behind the scenes, for you to rank for that. You want to have that content on the page where users can consume it.
One question from Deborah. Yeah. Can you describe an iframe?
Yeah, an iframe is like it's a hidden box, if you will, on a site. So they're not as common now, and I actually don't even know how common they are at this point. But what an iframe would be is, let's say I have a bunch of text, or I have a bunch of tags. It used to be really popular when we would install a bunch of like little tags on sites to tell us things about what users are doing. You don't want that to be seen on the page. So what you do is, in the code, you put it inside an iframe, which then the website knows I don't show this particular thing, but it's still on the page. Back in the day, like the really kind of, I don't know, they call it black hat SEO, or like, the bad guy SEO. What they used to do is put iframes on pages and just put the keyword over and over and over and over and over again on the iframe, to hopefully, the user wouldn't see it, but Google would see it. It's just not something that really is done a whole lot anymore, and not something that I would recommend. I mean, iframes are great if you need to put something on the website that you need for a tracking purpose or something like that, and you don't want it to show up. But even now, I would probably recommend more so using like a Google Tag Manager or something like that, where you can put all those tags into that, and it's just in the header of the website, and doesn't have any of those iframe attachments to it.
Another question: for a video on a key page of a website, where do you suggest the transcript should appear? Or could we provide a link to the transcript that goes to another page on the site?
Yeah, that you could do that. The other thing that I've seen a lot of people do is, let's say you have like on a home page, for instance, you have a video and you don't necessarily want to put a big transcript underneath that. Sometimes people will house those videos on YouTube because they're using them for other marketing things as well. I would put the transcript there in the description, which that will allow your video itself on YouTube to rank. As you guys, I'm sure people have seen, when you go in and type a search, a lot of times you'll see videos underneath those before you even get to the web pages. And that's a technique that you can use in Google to help get those videos ranked. And then obviously it's still driving back to your website and those kinds of things, because you're including links within those descriptions. So it depends too. I mean, I say that it's best practice, but I don't think obviously not every video on your website needs to have a transcript. If it's on your homepage or something like that, the point of that page is not for that video to rank. This is more so if you have, let's say, a quick how-to video about a specific service that your company provides, and it has its own kind of page, I definitely would put a transcript there, because that's a page you do want to rank. Your homepage is going to rank for your name no matter what. You could try to make it rank for other things, and it might, but your name is always going to be the first thing it ranks for.
Jessica would like to know, can Google read the transcript track embedded within the video?
I do not know, to be completely honest. I want to say I don't think it can, but I also don't want to give out bad information. So I'm not sure. That's something I'd have to probably reach out to somebody or do some quick research to 100% know, but I'm happy to follow up about that. I don't know off the top of my head.
That was our last question for now. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's look at some keyword tools. If you're running Google Ads, you have access to this thing called Google Keyword Planner. It's fantastic. I use it all the time. It allows you to put in your website or put in keywords, and it'll show a bunch of relevant keywords to it. It's mostly used for paid ads and paid search results, but the search volume and the impressions and all that stuff is actually very accurate as well because it's coming from Google. So it can help lead you in terms of what are keywords that I want to be showing up for. Also, Google Trends is really valuable. If you work in an industry where something is changing. So for instance, here's a good example of this. When GA4 was first announced, like maybe, shoot, it could be 2 years ago now that it was announced, a year and a half to 2 years ago, we were looking at things around Google Analytics on Google Trends, and we started to see Google GA4 was rising. And it was becoming more and more, people were doing more and more searches around it. So what we did was we wrote an article about it super quick and got it up on the webpage. And that particular article ranked on the first page of Google for like months because we were one of the first ones to write about it, and Google determined, hey, that's super relevant, let's rank that high. So, Google Trends can be a great way to just, if you have a specific set of keywords you want to understand, how valuable they are or what's happening in your industry, you can add a bunch of these in there. You can save them. You can get notifications from Google if rank changes and all of those kinds of things. So just a really cool tool. There's also a tool called Exploding Topics that you can go into and look up specific categories, and it'll tell you how much that's either grown or decreased over an amount of time. So if you have a topic that you want to know, hey, is this still relevant? You can put the topic in this tool, and it will allow you to, find out what the trends look like and know, hey, is this a keyword that I should be spending my time in? Or is it something that, I don't want to, not really worth me putting a bunch of effort into? Again, SEO is time consuming at times. Any other questions before we talk about some on-page stuff? Awesome. So I'm also want to be cognizant of time. So we'll go through this one somewhat quicker, but again, I'll send this out to everybody and everybody can review it. And then I'm more than happy to jump on phone calls if there's a specific question or something like that. But on-page SEO, right? This is where the magic happens. This is where the flashy things and making sure that we're, turning prospects into customers, building trust, all of those things happen. So once you've identified those keywords that you want to rank for, you want to make sure you have relevant content. You want to make sure that somebody is getting what they see. So Google uses this term or this example in paid search a lot, but I think it's also relevant to SEO and helping you rank. They say, okay, you have a keyword that says blue running shoes. You have an ad that says blue running shoes. You have in that title, it says blue running shoes. They click on the link. The first thing they see is a pair of red running shoes. You've already lost the user. The first time a user has to think, am I in the right place? You've lost the user. They're going to go back. They're going to go find something else. So again, the word of the day is relevant. How do we make sure that all these pages are as relevant as possible to somebody's search? After you have started to make that content, other areas are title tags and meta descriptions. So a meta description, when you do a search within Google and you see the usually it's blue, unless you've been there before, it's purple, the headline of the page, and then there's that little snippet of copy that's right underneath that title. That's called meta descriptions. Now, your meta description is what you have told Google this page is about. If you don't write a meta description, Google's going to determine what the page is about on their own. So while it's not necessarily a factor that we look at and say, this is going to make it way harder for you to rank for a specific page, what it does do is it's a missed opportunity for you to frame that conversation and for you to tell a person what that page is about. The other benefit about meta descriptions is if somebody types in your focus keyword, that keyword that you're trying to rank for, it's bold in your meta description, which is another indicator to a user, this is a really relevant page. Again, it's all about just those opportunities. Using header tags. Every web page on your site should only have one H1 tag. That is the one that Google looks at and says, this is what the page is about. And then you use H2, H3, whatever, however many subheadings that you have within the site, you want to use the right hierarchy there to make sure that Google knows, again, what's the most important thing, what's the secondarily most important things, and what's some supporting stuff. Make sure the page or the content on your site is written for your audience. This is a huge one. Again, Yoast SEO, which I'll show you guys in a few, will tell you what grade level a page is written at. But I see sometimes where we go and audit pages where, the average reading comprehension is, I want to say it's like 5th or 6th grade, right, on average. but then you'll go to these web pages that are written like someone's a doctor reading it. And I'm like, this is not that field, right? I know that we're really excited about it. Like for instance, when I first started my career, I started in a lawn care company. And they said, nowhere on our site do we ever say lawn care, we're only saying turf care. And I was like, well, the general person is going to search for lawn care. And all their content was written around all this turf care and really insider terms and speaking how they speak in their industry, but it wasn't speaking to those people that were actually doing the searches. So as soon as we went through and started to change those things, we started to see increased rankings. We started to see increased conversion rates, all that because we were writing to the level of where our user was at and we're using terms that they are going to be using. We can have all the best insider terms and industry jargon that we want. Again, if no one understands it, then it does our company no good. So we want to make sure we're writing for that level. You know, if you're in a more, I run into this with like medical and financial a lot. Yeah, your content's going to be written at a higher level. And that's what your industry is used to. And that's what your industry is looking for. So that makes complete sense, but just understand where you're at and write to that level. And again, we just talked about it. Make sure you're using alt tags and putting the right words into those as another example. So Yoast SEO is probably the most valuable SEO tool that I used and that I use for complete optimization. It's not a monitoring tool per se. It's not going to necessarily alert you, hey, your titles are messed up or whatnot, but it's a free WordPress plugin that you can put on. They do have a paid version as well, but the free version works great. And it'll tell you these types of things like no focus keyword. Google doesn't know what this page is about. You need to set a focus keyword and it gives you a space to put it in and make it easy. No meta description. And you see like the good stuff. There's 33 words. This is more equal to the recommended minimum of 300. You know, all of these things are things that you can use. Now, does this mean if all of these things were green, are you going to be ranking #1 on Google? No. You know, that's not what it means, but it is going to tell you, hey, there's some things that you can do to improve this and improve your chances of it. And it does it for every page. When you're on the back end if you're in WordPress and you're the back end, you go to edit a page, you have the Yoast SEO plugin installed, it's going to give you all this information. It also will tell you areas that you could link to other pages on your site, which Google likes to see. So it's a really, really valuable tool. And I would say if for on page, when you're actually doing the work, it's the best tool that I've used in terms of being able to actually make an impact. And again, it's free. So you might as well take advantage of it. Answer the Public is another really cool website that I use for content creation. So let's say, like for instance, it'll tell you all these are questions that people have asked online around a topic. So for social media, you see these are all the R questions. These are all the can questions. These are all the how questions. The reason why that's important is people tend to search in questions, right? People ask Google questions all day. So looking at different questions around that, like when I do content creation and I'm looking at, let's say this first one, can social media cause depression? If I'm my website, my focus keyword might be social media causes depression or social media depression, whatever that might be. That's probably going to be the title to my actual post is that question right there. Questions are phenomenal page titles because of the fact that's how people search. So they see it and they're like, oh, can I do this? Oh, I already know that the answer has to be contained within this page because you're starting it with that question. So Answer the Public's a super valuable tool when you start talking about what kind of content that you should be creating. SERP this isn't a tool I've used a lot, but it's a tool that was kind of reintroduced when I was doing some research for this. It's just a tool that allows you to put in your information and it'll show you what it looks like in the search results without you having to re-index the page. Literally just simulates what the search engine results look like. So you can see what does my meta description look like? What are my URLs and my titles and start to understand are my titles too long? Are they too short? All of those things. Again, just a quick and easy tool that you can use. I have a few other tips that I can share with you. I know we're getting close on time. I want to pause here and make sure that we don't have any questions before I push through.
So Andrea did have a question. Is SEO applicable to social media or just websites?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that you want to whatever the platform gives you in terms of like the about us or the description and or tags that you can use. Same kind of philosophies, right? You want to use the relevant tags or relevant keywords that are most relevant to your business, because that's what people are searching for. I don't know if doing that will necessarily make your social media page like rank higher within Google or anything like that. But getting relevant traffic and links from social media to your website is valuable, because those sites are what they consider, pretty high authority. So the more links that you can get, or people can share your links from social media on their profiles and people are clicking through, that's just a good indicator to Google that your website is really valid and relevant. What was I gonna? Oh, the other thing I was going to put about that, the reason why, having your descriptions and those kinds of things in Facebook be done as well as you can is, I think at one time Facebook was the second. Now I want to say it's like the fourth largest search engine in the world. So your largest search engines are Google, Amazon, YouTube, and Facebook. So making sure that you're set up the best there, while it might not be, and Facebook results show up within Google, you still want to make sure that within your profile, you're shown to be as relevant as possible for whatever that audience is that you're going after. Awesome. Well, we just have a few more minutes, so we'll go through some of these tips. Again, SEO is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. Google changes their algorithm all the time, and we have to kind of start over and start optimizing pages. We usually start with the most important pages first, and then work our way down. Regularly create, high quality content that keeps your site fresh and relevant. Monitor analytics and track your progress. You want to find areas for improvement or find areas where you're starting to slip down. Look for low hanging fruit. That's usually any term that you rank anywhere from 5 to 20. Google has kind of removed pages. They don't, we used to rank everything like the first page, second page, third page. They've kind of removed that. They've gone to an ongoing mobile scroll. Again, part of them optimizing for mobile first. And so in that case, we look more at positions now. So back in the day, if you were in position 20, that meant that you were on page 2 or 3, actually. Now we just know, okay, we want to move up as high as possible. But those areas where you're 5 to 20, means you're already ranking pretty well for those. And typically small improvements there can help you move up those rankings more quickly. Engage with your audience on social media. Get people to go back to your site from reputable areas. If you're looking for links, we could have done a whole presentation just on backlinks, and it's probably way too broad of a topic to get into here. But I would say anytime that you can get like a government website or an education website to link back to your website for some reason, whether you have an article about something or they're even linking back to someone on your team, those are the best links that you can get. So just look for opportunities to, hey, I've even done stuff where I've offered to write articles for, a college or something like that to help them, with their content on their site, which then in turn has gotten me a link back to our site, which is really valuable to get. And then I would just say, keep an eye on your competitors and stay up to date with kind of the latest trends. There's no shortage of news coming out about SEO all the time. There's some great websites. Search Engine Land is a great website. Moz has a great website. If you look, even just did a search for SEO blogs, you'll see a bunch of them that are really, really good. I just usually will look at them once a week, or I actually use like an aggregate where it pulls all these blog posts and puts them all in one place for me. But I just want to stay up to date as well. Even though I don't necessarily hands-on do this stuff as much as I used to, it's still really valuable. Then finally, just some additional tools. Moz Local is a great tool. Here's one thing that people don't know. If you have on one place on the web, on the internet, for instance, you have an address, and your address is like our address is 79 Aaron Drive, and it would suite SUITE 210. And then another place, if I had all that same thing, and instead of suite SUITE, it's STE.210 to Google, that's 2 different places. So it's harder for me to rank locally because they're looking at, oh, he's got 25 different locations or 20. There's no consistency. So Moz Locals is a free tool that you can go to if you just research it, put in your address, and it'll tell you all the different listings that you have and how many of them are accurate. SimilarWeb will show, how your website performs compared to other competitors. You can put competitors in there. Schema, again, that's something that we could have had a huge long conversation about, but it is a tool that you can use. Schema is Google's own language. So that's how you get, when you do a search and you see like the recipes or the knowledge panels or any of those, that's all done through little pieces of code schema that you put on the site that tells Google what these are about. I just wanted to put it in here for, just so you guys could see it, but it's something that you might want to look into and spend a little bit of time researching because it is pretty valuable. And then finally, duplicate content can be really bad. So just run your web pages through a tool that will tell you if your site's duplicate to somewhere else. Google will penalize you if you have a bunch of content on your site that's duplicate to somewhere else. So it's just an easy tool to go through and make sure, hey, I'm writing this differently than someone else. So that is pretty much it. Just to recap, let's be as relevant as we can. The first steps, make sure that technically your website is set up. Make sure we're focusing on keywords that are most relevant to our business, and we have content to support those searches. Organize it in a way that Google can really understand what that web page is about. And then again, it's an ongoing process, and Google loves to make our life more difficult by changing something and never telling us they're going to change it and never telling us what they changed. We just have to scramble to try to make it work. So that is all I have. We have a couple minutes or 1 minute. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them quickly. But if not, I really, really appreciate everyone's time, and I'll make sure you all have access to this.
So Chris, we do have a question from Lexi. Sure. Should you use your brand's keywords, for example, McDonald's careers, or is it better to use fast food careers near me?
In that case, like with a McDonald's, I would use their brand because their brand has tons of equity and tons of search terms around it. If I wasn't in a huge brand, I would probably use fast food jobs near me, or I would even create, maybe you have a primary page that's just about working. Like if you had a large company, this is about working with the company. And then I have another page that actually has the jobs listed, and I would try to rank both of those for different things.
Thank you, Chris, for spending the hour with us. Thank you, everybody, for attending. The recording will be made available to everybody as quickly as we can. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day.